When people hear the phrase unstoppable men, they imagine superheroes, geniuses, or lucky people who were born into the right families. But the truth is much simpler and honestly, much quieter. The real habit, the one nobody talks about, is built in the hours when the world is asleep or distracted. I learned this the hard way. When I was young, nobody believed in me. Not my teachers, not the people who interviewed me, not even many of my friends. I wasn't smart, I wasn't strong, I wasn't special. So while everyone else relied on talent, I had to rely on something else. A private ritual that no one could see. I used to wake up before sunrise, not because I liked mornings, but because I needed to prove to myself that I could do something difficult every day. Quietly, consistently, without applause. This habit, this silent repetition, became the foundation of everything I built later. You see, most people make noise with their goals. They talk loudly, they complain loudly, they quit loudly. Their whole life is a reaction to whatever happens around them. But unstoppable men, they move in silence. They build in silence. They become dangerous in silence. When people looked at Alibaba in the early days, they thought it was an overnight success. They didn't see the nights I stayed awake, rewriting the same ideas, questioning every decision, pushing myself to keep going when every sign said stop. The world only remembers the result, not the preparation, and preparation is always invisible. That's why discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. It's not glamorous, it's not inspiring to watch. That's why so few people ever discover its power. If there is one thing I want you to understand, it's this. Your life will be defined by the things you do when nobody is watching. Because that is where your real character lives. And character is the only thing strong enough to carry your dreams. When people ask me, Jack, how do you stay motivated? I always smile because they're asking the wrong question. Unstoppable men don't live on motivation. Motivation is like weather. Sometimes sunny, sometimes cloudy, sometimes a storm that makes you want to stay in bed. If you depend on motivation, you will freeze every time life becomes painful. What winners build is something much stronger, inner authority. A voice inside that gives orders and expects obedience, even when everything outside feels uncertain or uncomfortable. I learned this during the years when every door slammed in my face. When Harvard rejected me for the 9th time, I realized something important. If I waited for the world to validate me, I would be waiting forever. If I waited for someone to say, Jack, you can do it, I would die without ever trying. Most people are stuck because they need permission. Permission to dream, permission to start, permission to believe in themselves. But winners don't wait. Winners create a set of rules they follow no matter how they feel. This is the real secret habit of unstoppable men. They control themselves before they try to control their future. When I built Alibaba, I didn't have money, connections, or experience. I only had this inner command system. Every day I told myself, show up, do the work, move forward. Not because I felt confident, but because I decided I would. That decision became a discipline. Discipline became consistency. Consistency became progress. And progress became success. Luck? No. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And preparation is simply the result of obeying your own standards. You see, the average person waits to feel ready. Winners don't. Winners act, and readiness catches up later. The world follows people who know how to lead themselves. When you build inner authority, you stop being a follower of your emotions and become the commander of your destiny. When people hear my story, they laugh at the part where I was rejected by KFC. They laugh when I say 24 people applied and 23 were accepted, except me. They laugh when I say Harvard rejected me 10 times. But what they don't realize is that those rejections became my greatest training, not for my career, not for my business, for my mind. And the mind is the real battlefield where unstoppable men are forged. In the beginning, rejection hurt me like it hurts everyone. I questioned myself. I wondered why I wasn't good enough, why the world didn't see any value in me. But after the 5th rejection, the 7th, the 10th, something changed. I stopped begging the world to validate me. I stopped hoping that someone would finally say yes. I built a habit, an emotional habit, of absorbing pain without breaking. Most people crumble when life tells them no. But the unstoppable men, they use no as fuel. They treat rejection like training, not punishment. That's when I learned a powerful truth. Rejection only destroys people who rely on approval. When you stop needing approval, rejection becomes nothing more than information. You learn, you adjust, you keep moving. Every no sharpens you. Every failure toughens you. Every disappointment stretches your emotional threshold. In time, you stop reacting emotionally. You start responding strategically. When I finally built Alibaba, people said, "Jack, you're so confident." They didn't understand. Confidence was not something I was born with. It was a result of being rejected so many times that I learned not to take rejection personally. You want to know the secret habit of unstoppable men? They detach from rejection, emotionally, completely. They don't crumble, they don't pause, they don't retreat. They continue walking forward when everyone else would have stopped. Failure is a stepping stone. Pain is a teacher. Rejection is a conditioning program designed to prepare you for bigger battles. If you let rejection train your mind, there is nothing left in this world that can break you. People often see success as a crowded journey, teams, partners, support, groups, mentors. But what they don't understand is that the foundation of unstoppable men is not built in crowds. It is built in isolation. When I look back at every major breakthrough in my life, I can tell you exactly where I was alone. Not because I wanted to be, but because no one believed enough to stand with me. And in those moments, I discovered something powerful. Solitude is not a weakness. It is a weapon. In the early days of Alibaba, even my closest friends told me I was dreaming too big. Some quietly distanced themselves. Others laughed. Many simply didn't understand what I was trying to create. And for a moment, I felt the loneliness that breaks most people. But then I realized this isolation was giving me something I had never had before. Space to think clearly. Space to strategize. Space to imagine a future without the noise and fear of others pulling me back. The world's doubts became fuel for my direction. Most people cannot stand being alone because in silence they hear their fears. But unstoppable men listen for something else, their potential. Isolation forces you to confront the truth about who you are and what you want. It removes distractions. It exposes weaknesses. It sharpens focus. And focus, when applied consistently, builds momentum faster than any external support ever could. Discipline grows in isolation. Vision grows in isolation. Confidence grows in isolation. I want you to understand something the world rarely teaches. The path to becoming unstoppable is often a lonely road at first. The crowd joins only when success becomes visible. Before that, you walk alone. That loneliness is not a signal to turn back. It is confirmation that you are ahead of others. Use it. Embrace it. Let it carve you into someone the world cannot ignore. Momentum is not built in noise. It is built in silence. One quiet step at a time. When people talk about success, they like to focus on goals, skills, opportunities. But very few talk about the weight that slows them down, the people around them. I learned early in my journey that your relationships are either engines or anchors. And if you don't learn to cut the anchors, you will never rise. This is a truth most people avoid because it sounds harsh, but it is one of the secret habits of unstoppable men. They audit their circle without emotional hesitation. When I was younger, many of my friends had already given up on their dreams. They thought small, talked small, lived small. Whenever I shared my ideas, they laughed or said, "Jack, be realistic." They weren't bad people. They were just afraid. And fear is contagious. It spreads quietly. One negative comment, one discouraging laugh, one subtle doubt. And suddenly, your belief becomes weaker. I realized I couldn't build a future while carrying the fears of others on my back. So I started distancing myself from people who drained my ambition, even though it hurt. Most people confuse loyalty with attachment. They think staying around toxic mindsets shows kindness. But it doesn't. It shows a lack of courage. Discipline is not only about what you do, it's about who you allow near you. Winners understand that environment shapes destiny. If you surround yourself with complainers, you will complain. If you surround yourself with dreamers, you will grow. This is why Jim Rohn said you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And he was right. Every connection is an investment. Some pay dividends and some bankrupt your spirit. When I began Alibaba, I chose people who believed in the mission, not people who felt comfortable. I learned to walk away from emotional parasites. People who drained energy without giving anything back. And guess what? My path became clearer. My mind became lighter. My progress became faster. Cutting people is not cruelty, it is clarity. If you truly want to be unstoppable, you must protect your environment like your life depends on it. Because it does. The wrong people will kill your dreams long before failure does. People always ask me, Jack, what is the #1 rule for success? They expect something big, some secret strategy, some hidden formula. But the truth is much simpler. Control first, achieve later. Every unstoppable man I've met lives by this principle. They master themselves before they attempt to master anything in the world. Because if you cannot control your own impulses, your emotions, your excuses, then everything you build will collapse the moment pressure arrives. In my early years, I was not talented, I was not wealthy, and I was not extraordinary. But I had one small ability that later became my greatest strength. I could force myself to do the things I didn't want to do. I could push myself even when I felt tired, afraid, or uncertain. I could silence the weaker voice inside me, the voice that wanted comfort, safety, and approval. Most people don't lose to the world, they lose to themselves, they lose to their laziness, they lose to their fear, they lose to their lack of discipline long before life ever tests them. I remember building Alibaba with no money, no support, and no guarantee of success. There were days when everything went wrong, days when quitting would have been easier. But every time I felt the urge to give up, I asked myself one question. If I can't control myself today, how can I expect to control my future tomorrow? That question forced me back into action. You see, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Not talent, not luck, discipline. And discipline starts with self-mastery. Winners don't negotiate with their excuses. They don't wait until they feel ready. They act. They lead themselves with the same authority they hope to lead the world. That is why unstoppable men look calm under pressure. They train themselves long before the storm arrived. Success is never about controlling the world. It's about controlling yourself in the world. If you want a life others envy, you must first master a mind others avoid. Because when you conquer yourself, you become unconquerable. Many people tell me, Jack, you are lucky. You succeeded where others failed. And I always smile because luck is not what made me unstoppable. It is repetition. It is habit. It is the refusal to quit, even when failure stares you in the face. Thomas Edison is a perfect example. Everyone knows he failed 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. But let me tell you the truth. The failures weren't failures. They were repetitions of a habit, refusing to break, refusing to quit, refusing to be defeated by circumstances or opinion. Imagine this, every time a light bulb experiment failed, most people would throw the tools away and walk home. Edison didn't. He saw each failure as a message, a lesson, a small step toward mastery. He would test, adjust, and try again over and over, and slowly, almost invisibly, he built momentum. That is the secret habit of unstoppable men. They do what others cannot endure. They keep going when everyone else stops. The world only remembers the success, but the truth lives in the process, in the countless repetitions, in the unglamorous work no one sees. This is exactly what I had to learn building Alibaba. Every time someone doubted me, every time an investor laughed at the idea of e-commerce in China, I could have given up, but I didn't. I built the habit of persistence, the habit of learning from small mistakes, the habit of showing up again and again. This habit became my engine, and over time, small victories compounded into something unstoppable. The Edison story is cliché, yes, but it proves the point. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. Success is not about genius or luck. It is about a disciplined repetition of effort, especially when the world says you are foolish. The secret habit of unstoppable men is simple. Keep going, keep learning, and never let the failures define you. Let them shape you instead. One thing most people never understand is that talking about your plans is almost always the first step toward failure. When I started Alibaba, I made a very important discovery. The less I said, the more I achieved. Every time I announced an idea too early, doubts appeared, criticism spread, and momentum slowed. So I began practicing a habit I now call silent strategy. I would plan, execute, and only show results when the time was right. This silence became a shield and a weapon. Unstoppable men understand that noise is the enemy of progress. The average person seeks approval, attention, or recognition before doing the hard work. They share every dream, every goal, every thought, and the world reacts before they have a chance to act. But winners, they don't react, they execute. They let action speak louder than words. By keeping their strategy silent, they avoid unnecessary resistance, preserve their energy, and maintain focus on the only thing that matters, results. This is the hidden habit most people never see. But it is one of the most powerful tools in creating unstoppable momentum. I remember in the early days, people laughed at me for doing things differently. They wondered why I didn't share my roadmap, why I didn't seek validation. But I knew something they didn't. The world only rewards the results it cannot predict. When you stay silent, you control the narrative without interference. You prepare your victories in secret. By the time the world notices, your momentum is unstoppable, your position unchallengeable. This is why the habit of silent strategy is essential. It is not about being secretive for its own sake. It is about focusing your energy on what matters and not letting others' fears or doubts derail your progress. The world only remembers the doers, not the talkers. And if you want to be unstoppable, you must first learn to act silently, plan meticulously, and let success make the noise for you. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort. They chase comfort, safety, and easy wins, thinking that success will come without struggle. But the truth is very different. Unstoppable men build a habit of stretching their pain threshold. They lean into difficulty not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know that the mind and body grow stronger in resistance. Pain becomes information, a signal of progress, not a signal to stop. I learned this lesson the hard way. When Alibaba was just starting, every day was filled with challenges. Investors who laughed at me, technology that failed at the worst possible time, employees who doubted the vision. Each obstacle brought stress, frustration, even physical exhaustion. Most people would have quit. Most people complain and retreat. But I forced myself to endure, to push just a little further, to hold on when the world seemed to be against me. And over time, that discomfort became a tool, a habit that strengthened me more than any easy victory could. The secret is consistency. Leaning into pain once is not enough. Leaning in every day in small ways builds a threshold that most people never reach. Unstoppable men develop resilience because they practice endurance as a daily ritual. They turn challenges into lessons, stress into training, and discomfort into a pathway for growth. This is why failure does not stop them. Their threshold is higher than most obstacles. Their mind and body have been conditioned to respond with action, not despair. You want to know why some people succeed where others fail? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's a habit. The habit of embracing struggle, of walking into resistance willingly, and of refusing to let pain dictate their choices. If you develop this habit, the world's hardships become fuel. Every setback becomes an opportunity. And over time, the unstoppable man emerges hardened, resilient, and unbreakable. If there is one truth that separates unstoppable men from the rest of the world, it is this: the greatest battle is never with others, it is with yourself. Every day you wake up to your own doubts, your own laziness, your own fears. The external obstacles, the competitors, the critics, the failures are secondary. They are easy compared to the war inside. And the secret habit of unstoppable men is that they fight this war every single day, without fail, without excuse. I have woken up many mornings feeling exhausted, discouraged, or uncertain. And every time I have faced a choice, surrender to comfort or push forward anyway. The choice to act, to persist, to rise above your own weakness is what builds the foundation of unstoppable success. Most people lose these battles quietly. They stay in bed, they scroll their phones, they let fear dictate their steps. But winners, they understand that every small victory over themselves compounds. Every time you resist the urge to quit, you grow stronger. Every time you overcome fear, you sharpen your edge. Every day becomes a rehearsal for the life you want to create. When I look back at Alibaba, at the countless obstacles, the rejections, the failures, I see that what carried me forward was this inner war. I didn't have more talent than others. I didn't have more resources. But I trained myself to fight the daily battles that most people ignore. And slowly, those small private victories built unstoppable momentum. By the time the world noticed, I was already ahead. This is why greatness often looks sudden to others. It is actually the result of decades of unseen struggle. So if you want to become unstoppable, remember this. The war within is relentless and it never ends. You must choose every day to fight, to conquer your doubts, to overcome your weaknesses, and to push beyond your comfort. The victories the world sees are only the tip of the iceberg. The real triumph lives in the private daily battles you win against yourself. Win those and nothing in this world can stop you. This is the ultimate secret habit of unstoppable men. The habit that transforms ordinary people into legends.